Yo, how's it going, folks? Welcome to the first in a new standalone multi-part series that I'll be releasing entitled The Great Medical Cannabis Con. I know, right? Somewhat of a controversial and provocative title, but it'll make sense. In each of the episodes of this new standalone series, I'll be taking a look at a particular area or subject within the UK medicinal cannabis sector, as I tend to term it these days, the Medicinal Cannabis Industrial Complex. As you can probably gather, this is going to be somewhat of a contentious series, so do strap yourselves in, folks. I'm hoping that by breaking down this series into multi-part, bite-sized little videos, that this content will be much more digestible by the knowledge-starved and deprived masses that currently occupy the cannabis space, especially here within the UK. Each of the episodes will have their own theme and sort of topic of discussion. For example, this first episode is designed to catch you up on kind of the recent events of my life, my work and my journey with, well, our favorite plant, cannabis. And hopefully to outline you as to the content that you can expect throughout the rest of this multi-part series. In episode 2, we'll be taking a look at the history of cannabis as a therapeutic tool around the world, why it was prohibited, and the devastating impact ecologically, environmentally that its absence has had, and how this has created an ongoing pandemic of illness, disease, and, well, endless profits for a handful of individuals. In episode 3, we'll be taking a look at the events leading up to the creation of the conflictory, contradictory, and convoluted 2018 legislation that now regulates the prescribing of cannabis here in the UK, how it happened, and how this created the, as I previously mentioned, the Medicinal Cannabis Industrial Complex, and the effects that this has had on the patient, the legacy, industry, and community, and the fight to actually end cannabis prohibition. In episode 4, we'll be looking at the Medicinal Cannabis Industrial Complex and taking a deep dive into how it operates, how it's structured, and how basically giving a handful of people the opportunity to own, operate, and limit access to this plant via these very limited channels is only ever really going to result in the end patient being screwed. But before we go any further, I guess I'm kind of going to tell you guys something. So I've got a little bit of an announcement to make. Basically, I am now and have been for the past 2 months a prescription cannabis patient here in the UK. I know, I can hear the groans, I can hear the gasps. Hear me out a second. So I know, obviously, historically, I've been very against this system. Historically, I have, been distrustful of agents that operate within it, with their intentions and the general trajectory of these systems. And I'm very suspect of the people that are seeking to, well, as I see it, profiteer from a very limited access model here in the UK. But my personal circumstances have kind of recently dictated that in order for me to progress with the NHS and continue my psychiatric investigation and treatment with secondary care services, that I've had to obtain permission from one of these, well, legal racketeering or extortion groups, the cannabis clinics here in the UK. This decision was by no means easy. It was by no means made hastily, nor, to be perfectly honest with you guys, one that I thought I would ever really make or even consider. As again, my words are quite well documented on the record, the legality of cannabis has never really bothered me. Oh, well, the existence of these uniformed weed killer gangs has never really, deterred me from producing my own cannabis, consuming cannabis, advocating for cannabis, and being an activist within this realm. It's never really worried me enough to cease consuming it or to abandon my sincere, long-held beliefs that cannabis is far more than just, a powerful therapeutic tool and a safe euphorian drug, that it is the ultimate ubiquitous, disruptive, natural, sort of commercial and industrial resource available to mankind. So why then get a prescription? I can hear you all asking. Well, for those of you that may know or followed my work and heard my story before, I've been dealing with mental health services and psychiatric services here in the UK and in the NHS for about 25 plus years now at this point, as a result of a very abusive childhood that left me, well, emotionally, physically, and sort of mentally scarred by the entire experience. This has then led to a multitude of interactions with the NHS over several decades, where I have basically been met with prejudice, derision, and condemnation from the NHS and from the plethora of, well, eager and well-intended but ill-informed and misguided individuals that populate it. for basically self-medicating and for my sort of curious exploration of other criminalized compounds and their potential therapeutic benefit and effect for my mental health, for my physical health, and for the betterment all of my individual life. So basically what's happened is that I've recently been in a period of protracted personal crisis, I guess is probably quite a good way of terming it. It's quite a PC way of describing it in quite a clinical way, but for ease of conversation, that's the way we will describe it. So this then once again resulted in my reliance on local mental health services. And again, I was met with the same kind of prejudice, the same kind of derision, and was ultimately denied service for being a substance abuser for my admitted cannabis use, even though I'd obviously explained how this helps me, explained how it allowed me to live pharmaceutical free. Yeah, this then basically left me in a position that I'd been in many, many times before. I'd been down this road. I knew the street signs. I could guess the streets that were coming up. I knew exactly where I was heading and the cycle that I would go around again. The only difference would be I'd be 5, 10, 15 years older back in the same position. So this interaction was different in the sense that I guess the law had changed since the last time that I'd been rejected by the service. So this left me a viable way of you know, a viable route of recourse ultimately to be able to, you know, challenge their decision against me, that I wouldn't be a substance abuser if I had a prescription. Having never really had this option before was in itself kind of a catharsis, was a form of what had therapeutic value ultimately. It had a positive impact on my mental health, knowing that I could engage with service and with individuals, knowing that I wouldn't be prejudiced, because ultimately previously I would be a druggie, whereas if I then went ahead and got a prescription, they would have to then look at me as a law-abiding patient, which would leave me free to access all that the service could provide. Ultimately, I agonized over this decision for weeks, months. My mental health declined over that period. Unfortunately, another sort of tragic life event occurred that left me in a destabilized situation in which I felt that without immediate care and intervention, frankly, I kind of feared for my own safety. I was not in a very good space. I have been here historically. I know my own routines. I know my own patterns. I could predict my own behavior. So this then led me to the point where I needed access to service, and I knew a way that I could circumnavigate the prejudice of the system. So ultimately, this led to me biting the bullet, and I applied for one of the clinics. I'm not going to name the clinic at this point for legal and sort of personal reasons, which I do hope you sort of understand. And yeah, after an extended period of silence, after I'd filled in the paperwork to a degree to which I'd felt was far too honest, I explained that, you know, vaporization was very limited for me. I explained about routes of consumption. I explained about my history and my intention, and frankly felt that I had been too honest, and that yeah, I was not going to get an invitation for an appointment or the opportunity to get a prescription. Subsequently, I was proven wrong. They reached out quite a period of time later and invited me to attend an online appointment. During my assessment, it became abundantly clear that despite the clear competency of the psychiatrist and their skill set, they were woefully, embarrassingly, slightly scarily, if I'm honest with you, unaware of the most basic knowledge of cannabis as a plant, of terpenes, of the synergy of the different compounds, of the even receptors and the way that it operates within the body and the endocannabinoid system, or even just basic consumption methods and how they change the molecules and their impact on the endocannabinoid system. To be truly honest with you, it was frightfully eye-opening experience, and yeah, quite frankly, terrifying as someone who is dedicated their life to, you know, learning about and championing and fighting for cannabis, to witness firsthand. In the later episodes of this series, I'll continue on describing to you my journey, what has happened my experiences, my conclusions, and where I believe that this nascent medicinal cannabis industrial complex is going wrong, and what can be improved, areas that can be, have a light shined upon, so that we can make sure that everybody is as informed as everybody else within this, because we need informed consent. We need individuals to be educated what they're putting into their bodies, how it's affecting their bodies, what it's going to do to their long-term health, and what they can do to regain their own sovereignty and the autonomy of their healthcare by growing their own plants, by accessing cannabis in a multitude of other ways. So over the coming series, I do hope that you find enough information on this to make an informed decision about where you stand. But until then, I'm going to continue to champion, as always, for cannabis as a plant. I may now be a prescription cannabis patient, but this does not mean that I am, air quotes, changing a camp. I'm moving sides. I do not believe in sides. I've never been for the sides. I am for the plant and the people that have a passion to protect it, and the people that want to live in a world where it is ubiquitous and it is freely available for people to build industry, for them to build a relationship with, for them to build communities around, because this is the ultimate resource that we have available to us. So if you enjoyed this video, folks, please do give us a little like, a share, and a subscribe, and don't forget to turn on that notification bell to be first notified when new videos are released. Don't forget as well to check out the Simpa Life podcast and new episodes every week. Also, Patreon. Check us out on Patreon. Monies and stuff helps. New studio. Peace and love, folks. We'll see you next week. Them extra first. You can check us out on extra first. That is some wording right there. I'm actually going to keep this in the final edit because that is some shitty language.